So, you've gotten into Michigan. You worked hard in high school to get the grades and resume necessary to come to this competitive university. But what is competitive, especially when the starting line is not the same?
I attended an all-boys private boarding school in Toronto, Ontario.
I went to a private high school in Los Angeles, California.
I went to a private school in Caracas, Venezuela.
We had about 500 kids, less than 500 kids, in the school.
So where I'm from is very rural, very poor.
We were on an island. There was only one school, so everyone came to that school, and there were 50 kids in the entire thing.
It was overall a very rigorous and competitive school. We all did the IB program. From an extracurricular standpoint, we were a highly competitive athletic school. Many of us were recruited and given scholarships to attend. We were taught to time manage, we were taught to take care of our things, and all in all, it kind of forced us to grow up and kind of be independent a few years earlier than most kids do. We got a lot of support from our teachers, having office hours similar to those that our university professors have. They were very open at coming in on weekends and sitting with us, especially the boarding students. I felt like we were very well supported. They would come in, sit with us during our brunch on Sunday and help us go through work and just kind of talk to us and see where we're standing in the class and whatnot. My senior year, we had a lot of support with our applications, especially coming from a Canadian school. Applying to the States, we had counselors and advisors help us with our applications, help us with our essays, and also prepare us for the ACTs and SATs. The school took this, placed a lot of importance on our university placement.
My high school was very affluent in nature. Like, the tuition was really high, so all the people that I knew were really of high income, and that translated with the quality of the infrastructure in the school and the quality of teachers that we had in the school. We had lots of doctors that taught as high school teachers, which isn't common at all. And then we had a lot of good it was a college preparatory school as well, so it had a lot of good counselors and resources for getting into college and to be ready to apply to college. It was not even that it was encouraged, it was more that it would be weird if you didn't. In your junior year of high school, you get assigned a counselor and you meet with them and you start forming a list of schools. We also had college trips, so we had a West Coast college trip and an East Coast college trip that you could sign up for. We had a college boot camp the week before senior year started. We met with counselors, worked on essays, did a lot of workshopping, did personal essays, and then we had recruiters come to the school every week, and you could miss class to go to an information session. The culture of the school was that this school you're going to because you want to go to college. There was only a few people that did not go on to be in college.
It was a very demanding academic school. It was one of the only 6 or 7 high schools in the whole country that offered the international baccalaureate program. Basically, it's an international program similar to APs in the United States, but international. It was hard, which also opened the possibility of actually coming all the way to the US and study here. Most of the teachers were actually bilingual, people that come from outside of the United States, and personally I don't understand why they were in Venezuela still with the economic circumstances, but that meant that I really had very high quality teachers. Class size was usually around 30 students. I had 31 students in my class, which meant that pretty much if there was any extracurricular, either half of the people were involved or it wouldn't have been an extracurricular. And we didn't have any STEM extracurriculars. I was pretty much expected to go to college. Since I started high school to when I graduated high school, it started shifting because of the economical circumstances in Venezuela. A lot of students were actually trying to find financial ways to go study abroad, not having to stay in Venezuela, hopefully to make a life outside of Venezuela. So we didn't really have any kind of guidance, which was actually very, very bad for a lot of people, including me, in the sense that we had to seek external help in order, especially for people that were trying to study abroad, because many of the kids were affluent. There were a lot of private schools in Florida that would come because it was very common migrated and were planning to study abroad to go to private schools in Florida because their parents were affluent enough to afford them. But yeah, like Michigan never visited my school.
We had below average education, to say the least. Teachers were pretty average, most coming from local area and then having not gone to out-of-state school. So most graduating from my high school, going to Michigan State or U of M Flint or other schools like that, Wayne, and then coming back to where they went to high school. Our high school was very focused on bringing low-level students up to a higher level. And so it was more attention to the masses as a whole rather than attention to individuals. We had a dual enrollment program. We had 3 AP classes, AP Chem, AP Calc. Maybe we only had 2. Yeah, we had 2, and then our English class, or for seniors, was considered dual enrollment through LCC. That's what it was. And then we could also dual enroll through online courses. Our counselors were educated enough to get us through college applications. But really, that's about as far as it goes. That there wasn't much outreach to secondary education, but I mean, it was there. There was a presence.
I think traditionally, if you compared it to other schools, quality would be pretty low. We didn't have a lot of resources. We didn't have a lot of teachers. We even had the middle school and the high school moved into the same building at one point because we just didn't have money. And it was also far from everything. There was like a public library that had 4 books in it. But I don't want to take away from the fact that the teachers really cared a lot, and they took what they had and they did the absolute best they could with it, even if they weren't necessarily the smartest, most challenging teachers that had been other places, seen a lot of the world. A lot of them were from the area, but they really did care a lot, and I think that definitely prevailed above all else. Really far from a lot of other resources that were academic and whatnot. It was fairly close to a local university in terms of the grand scheme of things, but not a lot of people use those resources. I would say in terms of advising, like negative 5. That being said, we did have a dual enrollment program with Ferris State University, which was about 20 minutes away, so we could take actual college classes with college students and then actually get like raw experience of what college is like. Of course, it's Ferris State University compared to University of Michigan, for example, is totally different.
Overall, we did not have very many resources, especially with like AP classes or things like that. The only extracurriculars we had were soccer, basketball, and volleyball, which weren't huge. Teachers were supportive of going to college, but they were very hesitant in carrying the conversation on, like, oh, if you want to go to college, that's great, but we'll end there. We had a guidance counselor for a couple years, and then after my sophomore year of high school, they got rid of our guidance counselor. So I wasn't really sure what to do about secondary education. There were no resources really for secondary education. The school kind of just put students through the school so that they could stay on Beaver Island and work. They didn't push going to college, and it's very common that people don't go to college on Beaver. So I didn't really have very many resources or people to look to when trying to find somewhere to go for college.
Just being and living at school since my sophomore year, obviously it was a little more strict than college life, and we had many more boundaries than we do in college, but all in all, I think it was a very good experience for me in that standpoint. Overall, from an ethnic and diverse standpoint, I think the school saw a lot of similarities to life at Michigan. Just living in Toronto, it's a very diverse and ethnic city. As pairing that with all the students from the boarding houses being international and coming from Europe and Asia, I think it let me and opened my eyes to different perspectives and opinions, and just different ways of life from different parts of the world. I think that really prepared me well for life at Michigan because similarly so, a lot of students are from various backgrounds, and I don't think I really had a closed-minded approach to meeting people and just getting along at Michigan. Looking back on it, attending an all-boys school, it kind of was a bit of a culture shock attending a large public university and working and studying with girls in various classes. I think there's different viewpoints, and I think they're not expressed when you attend an all-boys school, but otherwise I felt very prepared academically, socially, as well as emotionally. I think being in boarding school, like I said previously, really prepared me for college life, and I think it really made my transition to Michigan a lot easier.
It's actually not too different of a culture, I'd say. Very high achieving, very high bar that you want to be meeting academically. The school wasn't very diverse in terms of race in high school. I mean, Michigan isn't all too diverse itself, but definitely there's more diversity here, but it wasn't anything that I wasn't very used. It didn't catch me off guard because I am from Los Angeles, a very diverse city. So my middle school is a very interesting one because the school itself was 85% Latinx, but the program in which I was in was 60 kids out of the 1,500 that went to the school. Those 60 kids, basically it was, in my class there was one black girl and there was one Hispanic girl and the rest were white and Asian kids. Even within a public school in Los Angeles, you definitely in the honors track, you get very stark racial differences. So there wasn't a huge culture shift at all. The high school did a good job of preparing me of what college would expect of me. But that, for the most part, is probably because I am white, and those programs were geared towards white people from middle income backgrounds. It continues into high school. Neighboring high schools next to me, there's the magnet programs are definitely more racially exclusive, and definitely the private schools as well. So had I gone to public school instead of private school, I could have found a good public school with a good program. It wouldn't have had the same resources, and I would have not been as privileged as I would have been. It really wasn't that harsh of a transition. Academically, I was not challenged going into my first semester at Michigan. It was a college preparatory school. I took many AP courses. I came into the school with 26 credits. The thing that was completely different was just the hugeness of everything. Certainly things are a lot different in terms of class sizes. I wasn't used to not knowing who my professor was, not knowing who my teacher was. I've always had very close relationships with my teachers. But the university did a good job with the first year seminars in getting me good relationships with really qualified and really awesome professors.
Demographics are completely different. Ethnically, it's clearly very different in the sense that I went to a different Latin American country, so pretty much 100% of the population I was surrounded by were Latin American citizens, Venezuelan. Even though it wasn't the same demographic as Venezuela, because similar to the United States, the people that are affluent are usually not African American. Well, I don't know if that's the right word. So it was mostly lighter skin color, ? But at the same time, they were not white. Cultural wise, my high school had a lot of Venezuelan culture. So for example, every time we had a party or something, every time I walked in, I would kiss all the girls on the cheek and give a handshake to all the guys. And that's not really here. Here, people don't really expect any kind of physical contact unless you, I don't know, are in a relationship or something. So that was definitely a shock in the sense that the first time I went for a hug someone and they reacted oh wait, this is not what I expected. I was wait, oh well, right, this is not something that people do here. So I've always been a very determined and goal-oriented person. So since junior year, when I decided I was going to go to college, you realize that there were going to be significant challenges for that. So basically, I don't have any family that lives in the United States. Just being so far away from home has a lot of implications. I cannot visit home if I'm feeling sad or if I want to go, I don't know, have some home food. And I also, for example, if I were to fail and break my leg or something, I'm on my own basically. So because of that, I knew since junior year of high school, I already knew the transition was going to be hard. So I kind of like mentally prepared myself, like, you know, for that. I think the first like month was critical in the sense that I tried to be like super outgoing and super friendly to people in order to like get like some support group here and like have friends. it's been alright. I think like I've managed it properly. I acknowledge that it was like a hard change, but it has. I think part of the being aware of how hard it was going to be helped a lot.
It was rough, extremely rough. I did not have to try in high school. Like I said earlier, my high school was focused on the lower levels. So if you were smart, they just let you do whatever you wanted to, essentially. And so here at U of M, all of a sudden, I went from the very tippy top. I'm not even in the top half here at U of M, not even close. It kind of takes the competition away, where it also puts competition in. I feel like if you're one of the students who's vying for a 4.0, then you're very much in competition. Whereas if you're a student like me who's struggling to pass classes, you are not. There is no competition. It is just staying afloat at this point. And then moving from rural to city was a huge difference too. Socially, I lived 5 minutes away from my high school. I knew everyone in my high school. I knew all of their names. And then coming here to U of M, it was just like, oh, here you go, live in a dorm, 20 minutes away from everything else. It's just really hard because a lot of freshmen don't really know how to interact with each other, or they don't know how to start interacting with each other, I should put that. And so my first semester, I didn't make any friends, so that was really rough too, socially. We had 0 black kids in my class, 0 Indian kids, 0 Asian kids, 0 kid. We had 1 half Mexican guy. Everyone else was white. So we had 0 diversity. That just wasn't a thing that happened in my high school. Here, on the other hand, at U of M, my freshman year, I didn't make any friends that were white. All my friends were Indian or Asian, which is cool. It was extremely diverse. My 3 Asian friends would speak Chinese sometimes, and I'd be like, what is going on? But yeah, it's extremely different. Teacher-wise, too, there's a huge diversity. Staff-wise, everything, there's huge diversity. But either way, there's a huge diversity in students and teachers here at U of M.
Generally a lower level of education and definitely a lower level of diversity. I would say 99.9% of people were white, and probably 95% of those people their family had been in the area for generations. I was seen as like high class just because I didn't ride ATVs, I didn't hunt, I didn't, drive a crappy truck and rev it for fun. Education was almost like kind of looked down on, and like affluence was kind of looked down on because those were the outsiders in the area. Whereas here, I think is almost the opposite, and people that are, of lower class or especially of lower education or maybe not even lower education, but lack of wanting to have a higher education are looked down upon. It's just a totally different way of living, Yeah, so in that realm, I had to, socially you adapt to your situations, and I had made those parts of myself, even if I didn't, ride ATVs or whatever, as I'd made those parts of that to relate to those kind of people more prominent, and then coming here I had to reverse that and kind of make the other side of myself more prominent. So on a social level, that was kind of a shock. I realized how much I was not forcing myself to do things that I could do. I was just doing what I needed to do, and maybe a little above that, but that was not relatively that high. So then coming to a place that challenged me more and being like, oh yeah, I actually should probably be not here but up here, and I can, but I need to work for that now. I can't just, kind of float along. I think that was a good change, and I think it's a good change to have. I think it's good to have both perspectives and to be able to relate to, people from there and people from here. and also have a better sense of understanding of myself. It's okay to just screw around and go to bonfires now and then, but it's also okay to, it's also necessary to study and to learn and to force yourself into new areas of knowledge too.
My transition was pretty rough. The school really didn't and the island didn't really prepare me to look forward to going to college. I graduated with 2 other people in my class, literally 2 people and myself. Getting acclimated to this campus was hard because I wasn't used to how big it is. It's probably bigger than the entire island. And trying to figure out how to deal with classes. Well, there weren't any AP classes and there weren't very many challenging classes to take in high school. It was all really easy. Went home with 0 homework every day. So it was a lot to try and take in when I first came here because there was a lot of information being thrown at me and I just wasn't used to it. So it was a learning curve for sure. Okay, both ethnically and socially, it's a complete different story. So back on Beaver, socially, there's no one to talk to. There are no people on the island. So coming from an island that has maybe 700 people, maybe year round, to having at least 1,000 in my class. Wait, it's probably more than that, isn't it? It's probably a lot more than that. So socially, it was a lot to come in and meet people and have friends and try and interact with those from different cultures and backgrounds. Ethnically, so I was born in Bermuda, so I'm used to experiencing ethnicities and different cultures from Bermuda. But then when I moved to Beaver, everybody was white. There was one mixed man on the island, so I really didn't have that experience growing up from middle through high school. So when I came here, it was a bit of a shock because I was not used to seeing how many people there were of different skin colors and backgrounds and what everyone else had to offer, whether it was SES or even religion. Everyone was the same on Beaver Island, which is sad looking back, but I'm glad I came because I get to experience all these different people that have so many unique backgrounds, which is so cool. With how to handle my time with people and socially and then academically also.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.